Hello, and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, I think maybe going on 19, and I have been being profoundly affected by the death of my son, share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. What's going on, Jay?
Yeah,
Need to.
forward it.
So today we're going to jump on accepting change you didn't create or choose, whichever how you want to say it. And this is a to- topic that really hits home, obviously, with me. I, went to work and got a phone call about 2 o'clock that Joel was dead. And uh, that's, I think, one of the more jarring changes. And death is very tough. I know there's a difference in expected death and not expected death. I don't know that one is easier than the other, and I wouldn't suggest such, but I know that there's a difference. And so the change that went through was so jarring. It created kind of a before and after life, before he died life and afterlife. So anyway, I would jump on this topic. And, I think we've all had moments where life took a turn we didn't want, whether it's a relationship ending, diagnosis, cancer, or something, really bad. Someone passed away like Joel, a job disappeared, or the future we were imagining just disappeared right before us. We spend enormous amounts of energy wishing reality were different, that it could change, that we could turn back time. So today we're going to talk about the difficult truth. Healing often begins when we stop fighting what has already happened. Acceptance is not saying it was okay or that we wanted it to happen. It is saying this is where I am and I will decide what happens next. And this kind of is what we deal with on this show, and what we're really trying to help people understand, that our past does not make us who we are. It does um, dictate the narrative in our head that is what we think the future is going to look like, our predictive future, but it doesn't dictate our future. We do with our actions today. And that's kind of my whole mission, is taking this swift change that came into my life when I lost Joel and turning it into what you've defined for me. I'm not saying you made it up, but what you defined for me as post-traumatic positive, the kind of polar opposite of post-traumatic stress syndrome,
Post-traumatic
uh,
growth
or
is
stress
how it
disorder.
would
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it really hits home. And when you see people who have quote unquote recovered, when we lose someone like a child, we don't really recover from it. We move on with it as part of us. But people who are living a fulfilling life, they're going through um, this positive side of post trauma. And I think it's a very good example of what we want to talk about today, and how I'm trying to be a light of hope for those in a dark time. So for people who are struggling, whether it's, it doesn't have, again, we say this ad nauseum, but it doesn't have to be that you've suffered losing a child. I get it. That's one of the worst things we can go through. And that's why I'm out here doing this. So you're going through a divorce, or you're going through, you didn't get the job you wanted, or you lost the job you loved, or, you've had an accident and now you're paralyzed, or all this shit, right? There's all these things that we suffer as human beings. And Jason, I think I can speak for him as well. We're trying to put ourselves out there for people to understand that A, there is hope, B, there is a pathway that can be defined. Um, and C, we're sharing, as we go through it. I am not where I want to be. As on the topics we discuss, I'm trying to, I try to be there and I try to work on it all the time, but I'm not there. So we're just trying to be examples, I guess. And so this is a big one. I know that a lot of us have suffered this, and it's not, it doesn't. Again, we don't just grieve people; we grieve expectations, identities, dreams, and routines. I mean, you know, I I always thought I was going to be. You're trying to get into law school and you can't get through the LSAT, or you're trying to get to med school and whatever the pre MCAT or whatever it is, you can't. You're having trouble with it, or you get in there and you flunk out. Uh, anything like that. It's just it sucks, and it's like, God, well, what do I do with life now? And then there's the divorce, the career change, the empty nest where the kids are gone. Um, you know, Trying to normalize sadness without having shame. And I think that's where this really kind of draws us down to men specifically, because we wear our occupation, our fatherhood, uh, our rewards, be it money or whatever it is we're accumulating to show what it is that we've accomplished in life. We wear these things on our sleeves. They define who we are. We did an episode on identity and how things get kind of wrapped up in that. So to to see a man go through something like that and have shame, it just seems like automatic. I lost my job. That's who I was. I'm ashamed, and and I think that goes with anything that when we lose, we have some shame that goes with it. But all the different emotions that go into it, and I think Jason's going to talk to us about, I'm sure, how we've got to identify these things, and we really need, it's really we're scared, and so we'll get into that. We'll give Jason his turn to talk.
Well,
Jason,
it's you know what? Let me, because I don't personally relate in a way to the concept of choice at a level. At a level, yes. Then at another level, so I relate to it, I guess, in a way like a yes and. Sort of like you were describing a before and after. So the way I relate to, and it wasn't, you could really say before treatment, but about 3 years post treatment, uh, things shifted even in a much deeper way. So we could even sort of come 3 years post treatment and really say before and after, right? And it's interesting because a way I might describe it is a growing capacity for choice, which is a byproduct of awareness. Prior to treat, I don't relate to it as choice. I don't use that as a way to diffuse responsibility. I don't relate to it as choice. I relate to it as the perfection, what had to occur, right? The deepest layer of myself to emerge. Uh, so that's one. I mean, for instance, like I don't know how to make a body or atoms or molecules or like a universe, shit like that. Like I don't know how to make a body. I didn't make me. Well, something did. Now, typically in our modern experience, many of us sort of relate to what made us as maybe like nature. Nature made it. Okay, that's fine. Uh, then I just would. My experience just took it even a step further and said, okay, but what nature? What do we mean by that? Anyway, I digress. So,
well,
uh,
let me
go
wrap.
ahead,
Can I wrap that up
please,
in a
please.
kind of what I hear you saying,
Yeah,
and I want to make sure it's clear. I think Jason is kind of defining to us where he's landed and currently sits, and that is
yeah.
that is such a shift in perspective, and it's huge. And if one can find themselves there,
The
it's life
process.
changing.
Yeah.
But I think you would agree you didn't start there. You've kind of
No,
this is
no.
an
I
enlightened place you
started.
found yourself.
It started by one moment of clarity, and I didn't even. That just kind of came, you know, because every other moment before that wasn't clear. It was not clear how to get out of the hell that I was in. And there were all kinds of ideas and like very sincere desires to be free of what I was experiencing. I couldn't, under my own power, my own thinking, my own planning, I could not get there. And then one day, it's like a breeze blew through. It was a moment of clarity. You got to go, go. I don't know. That's how I went. I went to treatment. I don't know. But it wasn't clear before.
Well,
It
and
was completely unclear.
so you have almost uh, immediate acceptance for things. If you walk out in front of a bus and get hit by a bus, I feel like you would accept that you made a poor decision. If you are just going about your day and a bus runs up on the sidewalk and hits you, life has handed you a new set of circumstances and you accept that this is part of what I'm going through to get to the man that I'm going to become. And that is the shift I'm so when you have learned to almost immediately accept that which the hand which you are dealt
Yeah,
as this
yeah,
is God or whoever you call God's plan. And then so I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to be upset about it. I'm not going to, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just going to accept that as this is what I'm going to experience so that I can reach the next phase of me.
yeah. It might be a way of saying it, but that includes more participation than I you know what I mean? And so it's not this passive, it's interesting because we often think of that the idea of acceptance is like accepting everything that's happening. And, no, when I'm describing acceptance, I mean the acceptance of every feeling as being okay to be there,
At peace with the
at
whatever it
peace with
is. Yeah.
whatever feeling it is.
Yeah.
Now, then that, now that then because there's clarity around what's being felt, then I would say there's more skillful movement and communication. Do you know what I mean? And then maybe wiser choices and wiser directions, and that's a work in progress. Man. I mean, I still struggle with nicotine. It's a thing. It's the most one of the most complicated things that I have ever had a relationship with in my entire life. It is strange, right? And that's okay. Yeah, I'm working on it. I think the way that I would relate to where life has taken me in my experience is understanding that the nature of this life is change. The nature of everything is change, is movement. Life is movement. Everything moves. Thoughts move, feelings move, sensations move. Like everything is in motion, right? And so life is what we call life. It is movement. It is change, right? Our suffering at the deepest level comes from resisting that.
Hmm.
It's
That keeps us stuck.
it's yeah, and it's innocent. It's not a choice. It's just where we might be in our evolution of consciousness. It's not a failure.
Well, I think so. I can see it, where you would want to resist it in a issue of divorce or lost a job. I know with Joel, there was like layers of that shit. So, not only do you resist it, you don't want to leave, quote unquote, the your child behind, right? Like you don't progressing. If I progress, I have to leave and I don't want to leave. And, then you have the guilt of moving forward and having happiness. And he didn't, you know what I'm saying? Like all this fucked up shit goes through your head all the time around trying to just grow and heal. And so it's like this, and learning that accepting reality is different from endorsing it.
Yeah,
I say it,
and
you can listen over and over whenever I say I am, with I'm okay with Joel's death, everything that has happened since then and all that I've learned, it goes to Jason's point. I had to go through that to become who I am today. And I'm very satisfied with who I am today. I've got growing to do, but I'm very happy with where I've come. And that's as a result of him dying. And I'll say,
and it is beyond imagination for people to even comprehend that that's a possibility to be said.
right. And
But that's the power of your life.
well, and it just there's so much that goes with that. You can't say I'm happy he died. That just sounds fucked up.
That's
But
right,
I
because
am,
that's not true.
it's not true.
Sorry.
So you go back to, if I could go back and change it, I'm changing, even if it means taking my own life and replacing his, I would do it right this second if I was given the opportunity. That opportunity has not come yet. And so until it does, I need to be okay, to your point, with all that came with it, because it has helped me get to where I am now. And I feel really good about that. And that's a shift that's like, It's hard to explain, but it's what you're talking about
It's a
when
process that happens.
it's a
It's
process.
because the event, which again is not it's incomprehensible for anybody with that's a parent, even for me. It could almost bring tears to just even imagining it. Um, it's like a nuclear explosion that opens up access to everything that was buried before. It's what it does. And all that heavy material that we carried around that made us miserable and mean and hateful and judgmental at a level. We had access to it finally. That's really what happens. You mentioned something earlier, and I just realized something. It's one of the most popular ways we relate to grief comes from a book or a lady, Elizabeth Kubler Ross.
Mhm.
And
Sure, the
so,
5 stages of grief.
yeah, right. There is a much deeper way to understand that. That's not actually. Let me see how to say this in a. That's, hold, I'm trying to say it in a way that's helpful. That's an expression of still being confused between thoughts and feelings.
What is?
That whole book, the whole idea of stages,
Mm.
the whole idea of it. Just think about it. I mean, we're mostly talking about thinking patterns. You see what I mean? So there's a deeper way to understand that. Uh, what it means to be fully involved with what's happening in our life as it occurs. Now, and that might mean we are broken down puddles of mess, fully broken form. You see what I mean? Like, it doesn't make us untouchable. It just means that we can get to a place where we are processing and feeling it all as it's happening. There's no delay. That so what we're describing is the way that most of us process is like it naturally, it's like it happens in these processes, and you see what I mean, right? But it's really related to our lack of understanding of how to not pay attention to our thinking.
Yeah, and that bridge is what I think we're trying to bridge for everybody. And it and I think, which haha, I think that it starts with thinking and learning and understanding and then putting yourself in a position to understand that you just need to feel and stop fucking thinking. And it's so
Which at its heart, one of the things that makes it so complicated, and one of the things that I'm trying to communicate is I'm working to help us expand our idea of what we mean when we say body.
Mhm.
Because in reality, what we see is a small portion of what you could call our body. And that is it's not opinion. That is how things work. And it's just our Western mind is very unfamiliar with that, just from our programming and conditioning. Heaviness that's within our within our culture.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting you called it the nuclear bomb. I that's exactly what it was. And when I would go to therapy, we didn't talk about Joel a lot. We talked about everything else that had ever really occurred in my life that had gotten me to where I sat. Um, and and again, I don't during those times I learned a lot, I think, but I, I wasn't really I wasn't on the path that I'm on now, and the path that I'm on now has gotten me to where I am. Now, to your point, I needed to go through all that stuff to get to where I am today. I learned a ton, and that's the one thing I learned was to continue to explore until you can find some real fucking answers. And and so I did, and I stumbled around finding shit. I was like, "Oh, this works," and that's not to say that I had to. I just was too ignorant to go out and find it. And then as I began to see positive results from actions taken, then I was like, oh, there's probably some more information out there on this shit. Let me go get it. And so then I began to go down the trail
Yeah.
that I'm currently on.
Now, I would just say that a little bit differently. There's an implication in what you said there. The implication was that something could have happened faster. So, my suggestion is that that's not how it works. So, the information comes to us as it's needed, and maybe we're more available to it because we're looking. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's my experience. It's like it unfolds the way that it unfolds. And yeah, the the way things were it's a year it's a year after 2 years that's way different now than it was.
I don't know. I think my pushback would be I think the key, well, one of the biggest keys was being open to being wrong about everything, which is
No,
what how
that's
I
necessary.
define open minded. And once that was unlocked, then,
Yeah, we just don't know how to open that door fully. Let me
yeah,
say this. So that
100%.
that is
And
the core of it all. It's going to sound pretty radical, but our evolution leads to a process of learning to become more and more disinterested in this character and every fucking thing it has to say, all its conversations it's having with other people, and all that shit that happens, right? We're not thinking it, it's just happening. And the reason it happens as often as it does is because we don't know how to leave it alone and stop giving it attention. It is literally a process of us becoming less and less familiar with what it means to not pay attention to that nonsense. That's literally what's going on. And you can, I'm sure you can relate to it in your own experience. I mean, when you let something go, you see how, oh, I'm not thinking that's not correct. I am not seeing that accurately. That's why it requires humility because the process is literally a process of seeing how you're not seeing it right. Like when you're agitated, you're not you are influenced by illusion and it comes in your voice. So it's real fucking convincing. It comes in our voice. So it's really convincing. It gets
what we
our
think is
attention.
our past experience.
Yeah.
And it's so fucking confusing.
Yes, it is.
Um, but as you listen to the discussion, you can hear there is a way through it. And, some of the things that I think uh, we do to cope through this shit is distraction and staying busy, numbing self with substance or screens. So the scrolling, anger used to avoid grief. So just stuffing it down and then trying to recreate what used to be. And
Nostalgia.
it doesn't work. And I didn't find anything that did work except for what Jason and I talk about a lot. I know that there are other paths. I know that there's definitely other paths, but um,
So
with
what?
to what we discuss here, and if
Kinda. I
the
would describe it this
results
way.
may
I
be
would
the
say there's
same,
not, but I would say there's not. No, here's how I think there's one path, but there's a variety of practices and
ways to get to it. Yeah,
ways to. Is that's it because it all comes back to the body. But again, when I say that, I'm using it in a way that we're not used to. But it all comes back to getting familiar with what is going on when we have our eyes closed. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, awareness. Like it all comes down to that, right? And uh, so if you think about it, right, like if you're going through your life, at any point in time, and let's say you're what you call ruminating, caught up, but it's not yourself isn't caught up because if you really think about it, you're in the kitchen and there's rumination happening. Let's put it this way: there's rumination happening, right? Okay, but you're in the kitchen. So actually, that rumination is a very small part of what's actually happening. Do you see what I mean by that?
you mean what you're physically living
I mean,
versus
right?
what
Like
your
if you can,
thoughts are doing.
yeah. I mean, just think about it. I mean, there's a whole world. Yeah, you're feeling things, and smelling things, and there's a
I get it.
whole world going on, and yet rumination takes up the whole screen. Right? Is
I
that
get it.
fair?
So you're doing a whole whatever it is, the actions you're taking, you're doing, you're smelling, you're in the
It's
kitchen, you may be
happening.
doing dishes, you may be cooking.
You're
Those
just
things are
not
all
connected to it.
taking. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Because the attention, so it all boils down to the faculties of attention, which are like a muscle. And so for all of us, really what's going on is that, like, again, if you close your eyes and there's thoughts, feelings, and uh, sensations, the word attention is referring to like going towards something, right? You see what I mean? Like attending to. I can do it right now. I can attend to anything more fully, right? And that's more obvious because it looks like it's, like visually it's over there. I can attend to it, right? Uh, but for us, like when we close our eyes and there's the the experience of awareness and thoughts, feelings, and sensations, right? Most of us are not connected to life at the level of feelings and sensations, right? And so what's happened, it has to do with it being painful to feel feelings and sensations
Or
because it's
uncomfortable at
brutal.
the least.
Yeah, yeah, uncomfortable. I would say brutal, because most of us have, like, just to be born is traumatic, and I could talk way more about what I mean by that. But just to be born and be on this planet, go through this experience is automatically traumatic. It's just the way that it is, you know. But for most of us, what's going on is we just do not have an understanding that thoughts are really objects. I know that's wild. Like, they just come and go on their own. It just feels like we are like, I am thinking. I am. It seems that way. That is an illusion. That is not how it's working. Hey, like, how do you make a thought? Like, anyway, it's so I can attend to thinking. So attention being like a muscle, what's happening is we're walking around in this experience. There's all this other stuff happening, and our attention, like a muscle, is just stuck on that character and all its demands and its past experiences and what it wants in the future, and right. And that is because we're not able to allow feelings and sensations consciously to be a part of our experience. The system just doesn't know what they are. It's like there's this constant effort to repress feelings and sensations by staying sort of like
Hyper focused on the
addicted.
small part.
Yeah. I heard someone say one time that the number one addiction is to thinking.
Yeah. And, we don't even know what's happening.
No,
That's the
and
fucking frustrating
we
part.
don't know that it is related to the nervous system.
Right. So I really think that analogy you just gave, I hope that it connects with the audience as much as it did with me. Um, when you're standing in at work, you can name a ton of places. The kitchen's a really good one, I think, because
Yeah, you just
it
can't relax is what's going.
because you know that there's a bunch more going on other than you thinking about whatever it is other than what's going on in the kitchen. So when you're there, that is a perfect time to kind of, what the fuck am I doing this for? Why do I keep doing it? And what I've tried to uh, focus on in coming out of the thinking, and I'm still there. I'm still walking on the bridge, and
We all, yes.
is what did I learn so I can put something down? A way that I really accept something
Yeah,
is what did I learn from it? And that's again going back to how I tell it about Joel passing, that I'm thankful for everything, and that has to include him passing, and that is because of all that I've learned
yeah.
from his passing. And
Now let me try something just really quick though, because I relate to what you're describing as like almost phases. So one phase becomes our ability to reframe. All right, to like, all right, now most of us though are not familiar with why we're even engaging in the process of reframing. It's because we don't feel good. Like that's why it's happening. You know what I mean? So the next phase is the dropping of the question why. That's the next phase. That would look something like being in the kitchen, noticing ruminations happening. You see, I'm not saying I am ruminating. I mean, it's just noticing because that means there's agitation. So
Hmm.
really, if you notice ruminations happening, you notice agitations happening. And the next phase is then being able to just focus on the agitation in the body and be back in the kitchen because you know why it's happening. It's happening because of the agitation. So that's where you put your attention. But that really boils down to our system's capacity for discomfort, for different kinds of energy, like for discomfort. Because if it exceeds our capacity to really tolerate it and be with it, then our attention, it's like gravity sort of sucks up into the thinking patterns and then our attention goes somewhere else. It's sort of like
It's a
it's sort of
coping
like
mechanism,
our
right?
energy spreads out. It's sort of like instead of being we can't be fully with what's going on, so then we go into time. Oh, okay. Now my attention's spread out into the past and the future, and that sort of governs it helps tolerate what's happening.
Discomfort or
Yeah,
agitation.
yeah. But it really is the heart of our suffering.
Yeah, I think that it's probably sounds a little overwhelming when you're just hearing it to start. Like, so if you're just in this beginning of suffering, this discussion is, I don't know, hard to wrap your head around. I know it was for me at one point. I could hear this discussion occurring and be like, I cannot track. And that's why I think the kitchen analogy is so good. We can realize even when it is a deceased child, so you get sucked into this vacuum that Jason's talking about. There's a lot of discomfort, right? There's a lot of just really bad agitation,
Agitation. Yeah, I like that
and
word.
so you're constantly getting sucked into this unbelievably painful circle of it
Yeah,
doesn't do anything but go in a
yeah.
circle. It's a hamster wheel of shit.
And most people, when they communicate what you're communicating to me, they describe it as their brain doing something. My brain's going crazy. That it's like that's how we relate to ourselves as like walking brains. And that's and so and I work to help people understand it. And I'm not it's that's a whole body experience that's happening. That's
Yeah.
what we're not aware of.
And I think part of the nuclear bomb that goes off with the sudden trauma, like losing Joel, is the it attaches physical to emotional. It really makes that connection clear that this just is not just my brain doing. It's not what's it's there's so much explosion happening right now. And so you can really tell how connected it is in the moment. All I could, so here's how I verbalized it in the moment. I can still remember, well, I'll probably get emotional telling the story, but I can still remember sitting in the chair and, he hadn't been dead a couple days and, it hurt, like hurt. And, I never felt anything like that. Like it just, usually you're
Real
sad or
pain.
upset, but it was
Pain.
physical pain. And, that's because it is like,
It's painful being here.
yeah, it's,
It's unavoidable.
yeah. But it made that connection and it was part of the opening, I guess,
So
of what you're
and
talking about
you
where
said
everything opens up.
like you said, I had never felt that before.
Yeah.
That's the key. So that my whole experience is a process of I never felt it literally. And then there was this moment, if just to describe my own experience, there was this moment where that it was a feeling signature of me. That sounds so mind blowing, but it's true. And I never like so it helped me relate to me in a different way. Um, and so you said something earlier. One of the things I would say to anybody is whatever it is, it can really all be boiled down to it's not what we think it is. This is more of the story. Like we're more to this, we're more, it's just not what we think. And we're capable of what our life is capable of way more than we know. And so I say to anybody, it's the key master sort of switch is the vagus nerve. So wherever you are, whatever your experience is, if you just literally go on YouTube and start learning about the vagus nerve, and not collecting the information, but learning about it, and then learning about the practices and starting to engage in the practices on a regular basis, which is like for me to say it's key doesn't communicate the severity. I can,
The impact, how much impact it'll have.
it's not, it's like, I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. There's no other way. Like it's not actually because life is doing, but if we want to participate in this process of life in a way that might culminate in more peace, courage, and forgiveness, then this is the direction that we go. We go into working regularly with practices that are moving in the direction of helping rebalance the nervous system. And everything that has happened within our neurophysiology and everywhere else based off of all the insanely painful, confusing experiences that we've had. And so it's like necessary. It, and it's actually the thing that is the most complicated for us because that means we have to stop, be still. And the mind says that the juice, is always somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which has some instinctual driving factors in it. And
Maybe that's what we've been told. I don't, whatever. But me, like, that's fine. It's innocent. It's
I'm
like,
just
no,
saying
nothing.
it's there.
Yeah,
It's not
it's
something
there.
you're
It's
causing.
no, amen.
It's just going to be
It's what's
happening.
happening.
Yeah.
Now, it's fine. Yes, sure. It's a thing that's common, you know. Uh, and so, so that means there are universalities to all of our systems, no matter what you look like, how shape you are. You know what I mean? Like it's we're all one thing, and so it works. Our experience of the process of healing is, and this entire thing is unique because it's our experience. Uh, but we can have conversations around about a vagus nerve, and that if you're walking around with a body, then that's part of your experience. And and then what will generally be a part of your experience is you'll experience life primarily in the head, is the way of saying it. Until you don't.
So you figure it out.
Well, but see, it's not. Yeah, but generally though, it doesn't. It's you don't figure it out. What happens is for many of us, there's this thing that happens where you hit a thing called a bottom,
Yeah,
and
you're
then
sick and tired of being sick and
and
tired.
then you
And
don't really have it's just like where life is leading.
mm.
Uh,
And some people hit that mediocre
yeah.
just, and
Well,
it
that's
won't
what we're
ever.
doing. We're essentially saying, and yeah, we're essentially saying to people, you don't have to like suffering has certain mechanics that can be discussed. Again, not pain. Pain is an inevitable part of this
Experience.
beautifully tragic thing we're in, this experience that we're in. Yeah, you're just not avoidable, you know. If if you got bone and tissue and blood and sweat, it's gritty, right? You know what I mean? So that part, the pain is not avoidable, but suffering, this inner narrator, which is the source of our suffering. This is literally what's going on. So there are mechanics to understand that, and understand why that our attention is just so addicted to
focusing on that.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think to finish your thought, I think what you were saying, we're trying to get the point across. You don't have to bottom out.
You
You
don't
don't
have
have
to.
to.
You,
You
we're
don't
trying to
have to hit
raise
that
the
wall.
bottom is a way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Those aren't
acknowledge
my
that.
words, but
Yeah.
I like.
You acknowledge that you're not where you want to be, and to get there, there's going to have to be some changes, and it doesn't have to be as drastic and radical as where we found ourselves. And the most powerful people are not the ones who avoid unwanted change. They're the ones who learn to carry it without letting it define them. We cannot rewrite yesterday, but we can choose the meaning we assign to it and the direction we walk from here. And I that is so key. And I encourage you to just take a step. Find a trusted human who you can grow, not with, not assigning it to anybody, but somebody who can help you navigate. Maybe they're in a couple phases, to use Jason's terminology earlier, a couple phases past where you are, but in where you'd like to go, and have that individual, and hold yourself accountable to taking a step every day. Hold yourself accountable to being open to maybe you don't have things quite figured out. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening or watching. Doing so helps us reach more men who could be positively impacted by this material. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcast. We can also be found on the socials under Guys Dealings with Feelings. As always, we thank you for giving us your time, your most valuable asset. And until next time, stay in the fight. This world is a much better place with you in it.
Peace.